toothpaste. Hello, my PLANTY pals. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new here, my name is Pearl. I live in Canada and I grow houseplants in my basement. And when they are super happy and beautiful, I list them up on my website, www.plantswithpearls.ca. We've got tons of beautiful plants available right now. So if you're in Canada, please stop what you're doing and go check out our website. Or you don't even have to stop the video. Just open up a second tab and you can browse while you listen to me ramble about cuttings. And we ship them all over Canada. I have shipped houseplants to every province, including Nunavut. And it's generally just a really great time. I love houseplants. I like to talk about houseplants. And so here I am on YouTube talking about houseplants. Also, side note, over 150 subscribers right now on this channel. That is crazy to me. Thank you so much. It's so fun. I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having a good time. If you are still watching and you are not subscribed to my channel, please do that right now. There's so much to love. For today's video, I am going to be doing a video on cuttings. We take a lot of cuttings. I've taken literally thousands of cuttings since 2019. There have been many cuttings lost and many lessons learned. And I feel like I have a decent amount of propagation tips and tricks to pass along. So yeah, today's video is going to be me talking about how we take cuttings, how we like to propagate all of our plants. I'm going to be showing you how to take cuttings from 3 different types of plants. For the most part, when you're taking cuttings, the procedure is pretty standard across the board, but they can look quite different. It can be kind of daunting when you're trying to take cuttings from a plant that you're not super familiar with. So today we're going to be taking cuttings from a Philodendron pastazanum, a Philodendron micans, and a dischidia million hearts variegated. They're all a little bit different. Yeah, all right, let's get into it. I'm going to start with what we use for cutting or propagation vessels. 95% of my containers that I use for propagation are sourced from the dollar store. Probably about 50% of them are mason jars. 25% of them are salt and pepper shakers that I just toss out the lid. I like these a lot because they've got a good weight to them and they're really nice and stable. And then the other 25% is just random shaped containers, but also from the dollar store. I get these in the section that have like the mason jars and your salt and pepper shakers and just like all those little kitchen containers. Yeah, I frequent that aisle a lot. We propagate all of our plants. Every single type of plant that you see on our website, we propagate them all in water. Over the years, we've tried several different ways of propagating, and anytime we strayed away from water, we ran into problems. We've tried sphagnum moss to varying degrees of success. It's not really that the sphagnum moss didn't work. We've just found this is easier and a lot cleaner because you don't have to deal with bits of sphagnum moss everywhere. And we've tried perlite. Same, it's not that it was a complete fail, it just wasn't as consistent, and then you're dealing with wet perlite everywhere, and then if it gets on the floor and it dries and you step on it, perlite it just ended up it wasn't worth it. We kept coming back to water propagation, so finally we just said, you know what, let's just accept that we are water propagation people, and we haven't looked back. We use filtered tap water for all of our cuttings. One of the main perks of propagating in water, other than it's extremely accessible, is you can see what's going on. I don't have to guess at what stage the roots are at and risk disturbing those little baby roots when they're just starting to take off, because I can literally just look through the glass into the water and see how the roots are doing. You do need to keep an eye on the water for it getting murky and kind of just gross and slimy. If you have propagated in water, you know what I'm talking about. And you do need to keep a really close eye on making sure that the water level stays high. You've got to check on your cuttings every couple days and just make sure that you're continuing to top that water level up, because you will run into problems if the water level is allowed to go down and you fill it back up. Any roots that you do have, if you do that, are probably just going to rot right off, unfortunately. As far as lighting, we have a bit of a different approach for our cuttings. We only do this for our cuttings. We do not do this for any of our other plants, but we actually keep them under a grow light 24/7. We started experimenting with keeping the grow lights on them 24/7 a couple of years ago because we were having rot problems, and I suspected it had to do with the fact that when we were turning off the grow light, the temperature was dropping by a few degrees. And so one day I just decided to say, hey, let's just leave the grow light on for a few days and see if that stops the problem. And it did. So yeah, I don't recommend leaving your potted plants under grow light 24/7. They do need a break from sunlight. For the few weeks that they spend in our cutting tent, the plants really don't seem to mind at all, and it eliminates the temperature fluctuation problem. This is just what works for me. If that sounds crazy to you, I'm sorry. As far as knowing when to plant your cuttings, my general rule, won't consider planting a cutting that has roots shorter than about 1.5 inches. Some plants that I know that are really good rooters, like Philodendron bone marks or Philodendron micans, if it's just shy of the 1.5 inches, like about 1 inch, I will probably just plant it anyways. But that's just something I've learned over the years, that some plants are better rooters than others. So if they are more of a picky plant as far as rooting, then I will let them develop a bit of a longer root in the water before I plant them into the dirt. We never have any problems transitioning our plants from water into dirt. It's not very graceful. I just pull them out of the water, plant them into dirt, and tuck them into bed, and they grow for a few weeks, sometimes a few months, before they're ready to be listed on our shop. And again, that just depends on what type of plant we're dealing with. All right, so I'm just going to show you really quickly how I like to prop my micans, and then we're also going to do my pastazanum while we're here, because why not? So I've got my scissors, got my mother micans plant, and I've picked a long vine and I have followed it all the way up into the pot. So here's the last leaf I'm going to cut up till. So I am going to leave this leaf on the vine. So I'm going to cut right after. And now I've got my free vine. When I'm cutting vining plants like micans, I like to take the whole vine off in one go and then go back and divvy it up into pieces. And this helps me keep the orientation correct, because I haven't had it happen to me before where I cut little pieces of the vine as I go, and then I'm not sure which way I'm supposed to put them into the water. So this just eliminates that problem from happening. I highly recommend it. And to get these guys into the water, so when you're taking cuttings, really basic explanation, have your stem or the internode in between two nodes, then you have your nodes. So that's where your leaf's coming out of, as well as you've got little root nubbins there. So when you're cutting, you want to cut in between the nodes. And when I'm taking cuttings from micans, I like to leave 2 or 3 nodes on the stem as I go. So this little bottom section here, we don't need that. She gone. When I'm cutting up trailing plants like micans, I like to cut them in 3 node sections. So we've got node 1, node 2, node 3, and I'm going to cut just ahead of that. I'm going to cut the bottom leaf off because she's going in water. She's going to fall off anyways. And then depending on how close the spacing is between these 2 nodes, if it's really close, I'll also cut off the bottom second leaf, but she's got lots of space. So I'm just going to leave her like that. and goes into the water. And I'm just going to do that a bunch more times until I have a bouquet of cuttings. So we don't need this little space on the end. Goodbye. I don't need that bottom leaf because it's going to be in the water. Goodbye. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to cut right above that third node. The node that I just cut the leaf off of goes into the water, and that's all there is to it. All right, so we're back with the pastazanum. I have a feeling this is going to go less smoothly than with the micans, but that's okay. We're gonna do it all together. The same basic theory applies, where I'm going to be cutting in between the nodes. So I'm going to be cutting the internodes. This guy, I'm going to go one piece at a time to ensure that each cutting has all of the pieces it needs in order to survive and thrive. So when I'm taking cuttings for the pastazanum, I'm making sure that every piece is going to have root nodes. Those are already going to be activated underneath because it's crawling along the dirt. And then I also want to make sure that every cutting has an auxiliary node, or a node that the plant will continue growing from once I remove it from the mother plant. There's no way that the scissors are going to cut it for this because the stem is incredibly thick. So I am going in with a craft knife just from the dollar store. Oh, wow. All right, well, I was planning on putting these guys into water, but I'd say these roots can go straight into dirt, so that's what we're gonna do. Wow, look at that. Oh, you're so pretty. Okay, here. The first one was pretty easy because the roots have been growing into the soil for the least amount of time. Now when I'm taking the second cutting here, I really need to make sure that I don't in any way damage this little auxiliary node here. I was also very mindful when I was cutting off this top cutting not to damage this leaf here, because this leaf belongs to this node and is going to be the only way for this plant to provide any nutrition while this node is activating. So I've got my leaf, I've got my active node. This is our internode still. I'm going to go past the last, and I'm putting just a very slight amount of pressure on this leaf so I can open up my cut, make sure I'm not hacking away at the plant anymore I need to be. I'm going for as clean of a cut as possible. Boop. Being really gentle with these roots as I try and encourage them out of the soil, because they're actually already pretty established. It's almost here. I'm trying to be as gentle as I can. Oh wow, this is okay, this is actually a really cool example of how hard these plants are working as they grow. The roots are huge. In the interest of full transparency, I did start recording this a couple weeks ago, and so the pastazanum has had some time to recover. And I just wanted to show you what the growth point looks like right now because she's doing it. I've got my scissors here. My house is seriously a black hole for scissors. I swear, I buy 6 pairs a year, and at any given time, I can only ever find 2. I'm gonna pretty high up into the pot, so all I'm doing is I'm just picking a spot in between So all I'm doing is I'm just picking a internode, which is a space, which again is a space in between where the leaves grow, and just cutting it off, and I'm laying them down all in the same orientation so I don't get confused. I have completed the chop. It's not a huge deal if you put them in upside down. The plant will figure it out, but it's just easier this way. So I lay them all down. With the cut end is all down here, and then the growing end is all on this side. All right, I've got my cutting jars here full of clean water, and let's get into it. I'm probably going to cut this piece in about half, so I'll just do that now. So every point where you see the leaves growing out of the stem is an opportunity for roots. This is a little annoying with these tiny little leaves, but I'm just going to go in and I'm going to remove the leaves off of about the bottom half of the cutting. Since this is going to be submerged in water, the likelihood of those leaves just falling off and rotting and making the water really gross is really high. So I'm just removing the opportunity, and now she goes in the water. And now I have to do that about 50 more times. These guys have been in their cutting jar for a couple of weeks now. We do have some root action. Some of them haven't done much yet, but that's okay. At this point, it is simply a waiting game. All right, well, that's all we have today for the video. If you're still watching, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Hopefully you learned a couple things. I mean, plants in general is really a very personal thing. There is a million ways to be a good plant parent. Everybody lives different places in the world. This is just what works for me. I hope you have a really great day. Please subscribe to our channel. Do not forget to check out our website and subscribe to our email list so you stay in the loop when we restock and have sales and specials, all that good stuff. And we will see you next time. Bye.